Welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my new acquisition, the MS 261, and why I chose that over the FarmBoss 271. So it's going to be a pretty interesting video. Before I get into the video, first off, I want to thank everybody that subscribed to the channel because I just hit a milestone, hit over 10,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for that, guys. Also, on that note, what's really strange is even though I have over 10,000 subscribers now, when I post a video, initially it only gets like 200 views. So I don't know if that's YouTube algorithm messing up the channel or they don't like my content, the YouTube gods. But if you enjoy my content, I'd appreciate it if you hit that bell icon. It just notifies you when I post a video. And it's kind of like a win-win for everybody because you guys get the good content and my channel gets more views and we just continue to grow here. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about chainsaws. So, a while back, when deciding what to buy as my first chainsaw, I needed to make the decision whether I wanted to buy the 193T or the 201T. And I ended up going with the 193T. I'll leave a link for that comparison video down in the description below. And I absolutely love this saw. This 193 is such a versatile saw. It's lightweight. I do a little bit of tree climbing, not so much right now, but it's great because it's a professional arborist saw. It's lightweight, and you can just take this thing and you can take it anywhere you want to go. I believe I have a 14-inch bar on here, and this has just been an incredible saw. But it has its limitations. It's not really a firewood saw. Sure, you can collect quite a bit of firewood with it like I have, but if you need to start cutting bigger trees, you kind of need to get a bigger saw. And for me, for my needs, really when you're buying a saw, you want to figure out what your needs are. For me, I wanted something that was very lightweight, very powerful, and something that was going to last a very long time, hopefully my entire life. And that's why I decided to go with this MS 261. Now, my stepfather had a MS 660 and he still has that saw, which that thing is just a beast. That'll go through like 3-foot diameter trees like nothing. But the problem with that saw is it's really heavy and really cumbersome. Due to my injuries in the past, I wanted something lightweight, which I can lift up this saw with one finger. Mind you, there's no fuel or oil in the tank, but I wanted something lightweight and powerful. And this saw right here just really hit the nail on the head. So I knew I wanted to get, like I said, a lightweight and powerful saw. So basically, I had the option of choosing the MS 261, which I ended up going with, again, the Pro Series saw, or the FarmBoss MS 271. So let's start comparing the features between this saw and what I would have gotten on the MS 271. So features of this saw. You have the elasto start, so there's like a little bit of elastic in the pull cord on this saw, making it easier to start. There's an adjustable oiler. Also, there is a decompression switch on the top of this saw. You have an anti-vibration system, which I think that's pretty standard on all saws. So when you're running this thing, it's that the vibrations of the engine really aren't transferred into your hands or joints as much as they would be as a saw that didn't have an AV system. Also, this saw has a magnesium frame. It's not plastic, and it has a magnesium side cover with capture nuts. Aside from that, also the oiler in this MS 261 has metal gears. Now let's compare that to the 271. So I went on Stihl's website, and what are the features of the 271, the FarmBoss? Well, you do get the anti-vibration mechanism to remove some of those vibrations. Aside from that, I mean, that's kind of it. It's got a plastic frame, which I believe it's I don't know what it is. It's some type of plastic. It's a plastic frame, plastic side cover. The nuts are not capture nuts. They'll fall right off. You don't have the Elastostart, which I suppose you could add if you get the elastic cord. The gears for the oiler in the 271 are plastic. They're not metal, and you don't have a decompression valve. So off the start, the features of this saw are looking pretty darn good. Now here's another one of the major reasons why I chose this saw over the 271, and that's weight. This saw weighs in at 10.8 pounds. You can lift it up with one finger. Now the FarmBoss is a little bit heavier. It's 12.3 pounds, which that doesn't seem a lot, but you hold this thing up all day and you cut firewood all day, and I guarantee that you will feel those, what would that be? 1.5 extra pounds. I mean, you'll feel that at the end of the day. You really will. So I like that this saw was lighter. Now, when it comes to bar lengths, they both accept the same bar length ranges. Stihl recommends you go between 16 inches to 20 inches. I went with the 20-inch bar. Chain, it's 0.325 chain for both of them. Now, the chain oil capacity for my saw, the 261, is 9.13 ounces. For the FarmBoss, it's 8.12 ounces, so you get a little bit more oil capacity for the chain. Power, here we go, power, this is another biggie. So this saw has 4.0 bhp, as where the FarmBoss has 3.49 bhp. So you get approximately 0.5 more horsepower out of this saw. So it's lighter, and it's more powerful, and it's just a better built saw. Fuel capacity is the same between the two of them, and the fuel capacity for both of them is 16.9 ounces. Now this is probably going to be, it may or may not be a deciding factor for some people, but let's talk about the cost. So the MSRP of this saw is $639.99, so $640. As where the FarmBoss is $430, we'll say $430. So it's $210 more, plus tax, of course, to upgrade to the Pro Series saw. And for getting a half more horsepower, and you're also getting such a better built saw, plus it's, what I say, 1.5 pounds lighter. I mean, for me, it was worth it. And I just think this is something that's gonna be able to be passed down to my children when I have children. So just absolute beautiful saw. So let's cycle back to this 193T for a second. Now, I remember one of the main reasons that I also decided to buy this 193T over the 201 TM is because of the M. Now, on a Stihl chainsaw's name, if it has an M at the end of it, it has a M-tronic carb, or an IntelliCarb. So basically, on the M-tronic saws, there's a smart computer inside the saw that tries to get the saw to run as efficiently as possible. It takes things into account such as elevation, fuel quality, atmospheric conditions, all this. And I wanted to keep everything simple. I like having a basic carburetor. That's something I could work on and tune and adjust right here in the shop. As soon as you start introducing smart computers into a chainsaw, well, if something goes wrong, I don't have the software to diagnose that, do you? You're gonna have to take it to the dealer. And who's to say that Stihl isn't making these saws, how do you describe it? Planned obsolescence? Something like that. I think you know what I'm trying to say. So by having a smart computer in there, I mean, you're trusting Stihl that they're not going to jam up the saw with some error codes or make the saw run bad after a few years or whatever. I doubt they're doing that, but you know, it's just another thing to fail. Why have that when you could get something with a basic carburetor that anybody could work on? So that's really why I chose the 193T over the 201 TM. Now, I'm happy to announce that the MS 261 has two options. They didn't have any of these saws in stock when I went to the dealership. I had to order this, and it took 3 months. Yes, 3 months. So supply chain disruptions are crazy for whatever reason that's happening. But if you order this saw, you do have the option of ordering it as a C, which is just the standard carburetor, or a CM. And of course, I decided to choose the 261C. It's just a standard carburetor. There's no M-tronic electronic nonsense, and it's something that I could work on, tune, and adjust right here in the comfort of my shop, and I don't have to take it to any sketchy dealers. So I'm just so thrilled that they're still selling basic carbureted saws. All right, I think I've said enough about the specifications and why I chose this saw. So now let's do an overview of this saw and talk about some of its appealing features. So first, starting at the top, we have a really nice chain brake, and it doesn't take much effort to trigger this chain brake, and that's a really important thing. You really want to make sure that the chain can stop if you need it to stop in an instant. Also on the top of the saw, we have a felling line. Hopefully, I'm sure you guys can see that, but there's a little black line that goes down along the side of the saw where the pull cord is. And that felling line is really important for the professional arborist or tree worker. What that line represents is it represents a perpendicular line with the bar. So when you're going to do your notch on the tree, of course you need to take a lot of things into consideration, such as lean of the tree. If it's off to one side, you got to account for these things if you're trying to drop the tree in a very specific slot. But this line, once again, is perpendicular to the bar, and it just helps you to know where that tree is going to land. Or, well, hopefully know, because let's face it, trees are very unpredictable. So that's a really nice feature on this saw. I'd imagine that's definitely on all the Pro saws. I'm not sure if it's on the Farm Ranch. I kind of want to say it is, but I don't know that for a fact. Also, on the top of the saw, we have the decompression valve right here. So if I pull the nice Elasostart right now, you can hear the compression of the engine being channeled through that decompression valve, making it a lot easier to start. And again, we have this Elasostart, which means it's going to be easier on our hand and arm and joints when we're going to start this saw. So if you're worried about doing damage to your body by pull starting a chainsaw, you're probably going to want to go with a professional model with the decompression valve and Elasostart. Something else that I really like about this saw, the oil chamber and the gas chamber are on opposite ends of the saw. The oil chamber is on the bar side of the saw, and the gas chamber is in the rear. Ask me why I like that so much. Well, the 193T, I know they're short on space, so they only have so many places where they could put the oil and gas chambers. Well, one time, I accidentally put oil in the gas slot and gas in the oil slot. Thankfully, I didn't start the saw. I recognized my mistake. I was able to correct it in time, but the saw was smoking the rest of the day. So, like for idiots like me, it's easy to distinguish where the oil goes versus where the gas goes. So that's really nice. Moving along to the back of the saw, we have the standard master control valve, which this is a 4-position switch. So full choke, partial choke, on and off. I like that. I'm on 193T. I have 2 different levers. I have a 3-position switch on top of the handle, and then I have a separate choke, which is kind of towards the back of the saw. But we're not talking about that saw. Nice trigger, nice spacing between the top handle and the back trigger, so you have a lot of control over this saw. So let's face it, there's a lot of power in this saw, and if you don't know what you're doing or you're not paying attention, there's a very good possibility that this saw will kick back, and having your hands spaced apart helps to control that kickback. So if you've never used a chainsaw, please take some professional chainsaw courses before you start playing around with these things. Looking on the other side, what can I say about the other side? Well, we have this nice big handle that goes over the top of the saw. So it's bolted down here into the magnesium case, and there's a little spring right here. And that's definitely part of the anti-vibration system, the AV system. Looking at the underside of the saw, there's another spring attached to the bottom part of this handle, so I don't know, we'll have to see how well this works, but it looks like it's engineered quite well. The main frame of this saw is magnesium, but you do have some plastic components. Basically from the fuel tank back is all plastic. That's plastic. This is magnesium. It's a little, I think there's a little plastic piece right here, but underneath that, that's all magnesium. But everything just seems like it's crafted really well. Also, I mentioned earlier in this video that you have an adjustable bar oiler right here. Well, this is where the adjustment for the bar oiler is, on the underside of the saw. And there's a little stamped impression in the saw of a chain and a little drop of oil. So now let's take this cover off the top of the saw and see what the air filter and the internals kind of look like in this saw. So to take the cover off, you are going to need a T-wrench or a flathead screwdriver. Quarter turn, And there's another one in between the Elastis-Start and the chain brake. The cover pops off. Now, I'm not an expert chainsaw mechanic by any means, but I do know a thing or two, so take my word for what it is. First off, what are we looking at here? We are looking at a beautifully crafted saw. Everything looks really easily accessible. It looks like it's easy to replace everything. Let's start off with the air filter. We have a cleated, or I think they're called pleated filters, where you have these ridges. But basically with the ridges, there's more surface area than, say, just a round filter with no ridges in it. And because there's more surface area, it allows you to run the saw longer without having to worry about cleaning out this air filter as much. But of course, you know, you want to stay on top of maintenance and make sure you clean it. I have a little problem with 193T with little bits of dust passing through the air filter and getting into the carb. With this saw, we are definitely not going to have that problem. So to remove this air filter, it's a quarter turn counterclockwise, and you could just pull it off. So how this locks in place is like a little flathead tip on this carburetor, and on the inside of the filter, you can see that there's a little receiver for that little flat tip. So basically, to reinsert it, push it in, quarter turn to the right, and it locks right in. There's like this nice rubber seal right here, so I'm not worried about any dust getting inside this carburetor. This is a really good design, and I can say that with confidence right now. Let's try and put it back. Push, quarter turn to the right, snapped in, good. I like that all the linkages are right here. They're easy to access. If anything fails or comes apart, it's all right here. Easy to see, easy to replace. Spark plug, easily accessible. So you see that little snowflake? Well, that is our cold weather shutter switch. So if we take a flathead, carefully pop this out. If it's the summertime, so there's a little depiction on here. So if it's summer, see the sun, then we're going to want to put it back in the way it was. But if it's winter time, we're going to flip it around. See the snowflake, so we're going to slide it in. Which winter's just about over, so I think I'll keep it on summer mode. But they have that nice little, I don't know if you call it a pictogram. I'll call it a pictogram on there. That's where that cold weather shutter switch is. You could also see we have the decompression switch right here. We just have access to the top of the cylinder head right here. It would not be very hard at all to take this thing apart. So I love how easy it is to access everything and just work on everything. Just such a beautiful piece of engineering. Right beyond the Elastis-Start, we have the flywheel. And I'm going to say that's probably the magnets for the magneto right there, which in turns allows the saw to continue to spark and combust. Here are all your carburetor adjustment screws, which they are, of course, accessible through the cover. Let's see how difficult it is to reinstall this cover. I wouldn't think it'd be very difficult at all. So you just line everything up, just drops right in, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. Beautiful. Fuel caps, you either love them or you hate them. I love them. Quarter turn, pops right out. The only thing you got to be careful of is if you fuel up this saw in the morning and you don't use it, and you really fill this up with fuel, sometimes if it's really hot out, the pressure will build up in this tank, and when you go to pop this cover, you may get a little burst of fuel that spits out at you. So that's one thing you got to be careful of. I'm sure it cites it in the instruction manual, but that's just something to be wary of. As for the cap in the front, this handle is in the way a little bit, but you know, it's also probably partially how I have the camera angled right now. But got no complaints there. Well, I'll complain a little bit. I gotta complain about something. I wish that it was a little bit easier to sneak a bottleneck in here, but it'll be fine. Beautiful. So one of the first things I need to do for this saw is order a few spare chains, and I like to go with the aftermarket chains on Amazon. I've had really good luck with them. So when it comes to ordering chains, how do you figure out what size chain you need? Well, best advice I can give you is go look at your bar. Now, there's going to be 3 things you're going to need. You're going to need to know the pitch, which that's going to be this number right here. So this is a .325 pitch. You're also going to need to know the gauge. This is a .063 inch gauge. And finally, we need to know the drive links, how many links there are. We can see that there are 81 drive links on this chain. So .325 pitch, .063 gauge, 81 drive links. This is a 20-inch bar. Well, sorry to disappoint you guys, but I'm not going to be doing any cutting today. As most of you will know, that when you have a brand new saw or a brand new engine, there is a break-in period, and you want to kind of gently break in the engine, make sure everything's running properly. What you don't want to do is take a brand new saw and just go out there and start running it full throttle and cutting through some gnarly stuff. You want to break it in gently. So I'm going to run a few tanks through this, and then I'll get back with you. We'll do some cutting, and I'll share my thoughts on how well this saw cuts. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. Please hit that bell icon. And if you're curious about the 193T, I'll leave a link for that video in the description down below. Catch you on the next one.